Hi guys, welcome back. Now most of you who have been around a while know that on the same day and in the same meeting where I requested reasonable accommodation for the first time, my boss also accused me of being AWOL and having performance issues for the first time. And after I filed a claim against her with EEOC, she accused me of only doing that to escape her discipline for those things. Most of us here already know that our employer can't discipline or fire us just because we filed a complaint with EEOC or because of our membership in a protected class. But just filing a claim with EEOC won't protect us if our employer has a valid, non-discriminatory reason for the discipline or discharge, as long as our membership in a protected class had nothing to do with their decision to do so. EEOC's Compliance Manual on Employee Discipline and Discharge lays out what's illegal. And it turns out that illegal discipline can take several forms. There's disparate treatment, where members of a protected class are treated more severely than similarly situated individuals who aren't members of that same protected class. And there's disparate impact, where a policy results in disproportional discipline against one or more protected groups. There's retaliation, where we get discipline for participating in a protected activity, like filing an EEOC claim, and discipline associated with accommodation, where we get disciplined just for requesting accommodation of our medical needs, pregnancy, religion, or other protected characteristic. CM-612 also lays out how EEOC goes about determining whether a particular act of discipline or particular discharge falls into any of these categories. And CM-612 also makes it clear that we can't use the EEOC process to escape our employer's legitimate discipline. If we violate their policies or rules, we still have to pay the price. And that's true even if a covered disability is the reason we violated those rules. However, even if our employer does have a legitimate reason for the discipline, it doesn't mean they get to do whatever they like. They can't punish us by infringing on our legal rights. Our employment rights are given to us by law, and that means they don't get to take them away from us just because they think we don't deserve them. Most disciplinary actions don't happen because we did just one thing wrong. Usually they have multiple reasons. Some of those reasons are legal, like legitimate performance or conduct problems. Some of those reasons may be unfair, but still legal, like if your boss just doesn't like you. But if our protected status played any role in our employer's decision to discipline us, that's illegal. It doesn't have to be the only reason. It doesn't even have to be the predominant reason. It just has to be a reason. So let's look at some of the ways we can prove that our protected status was a reason. First, there's circumstantial evidence. Even if my boss could have proven I was AWOL, and she couldn't, the first time she said anything to me about it was at the same meeting where I disclosed my disability and requested reasonable accommodation. The temporal proximity between those two things, my request and her threats to discipline me, strongly suggest that there was a connection between those two things. There's also comparative evidence. And for this one, I'm going to share a little bit of my story that you guys haven't heard before. The week before that fateful meeting with my boss, she was away on leave. One of my peers, a white male, was supposed to be in charge while she was gone. But 2 of those days, he didn't show up and he didn't call in and explain. My boss knew he was AWOL. We all did. And we knew why. He got arrested for a second offense DUI and he was in jail. A local news station published his mugshot and arrest record online. My boss never said one word to him about being AWOL. But a week later, she was all over me with no proof. I didn't even have a mugshot. That made it kind of obvious that she had one standard for me, the disabled white female, and another standard for the non-disabled white male in the next office. That little bit of comparative evidence suggests that my disability at least played some role in her decision to threaten me with discipline. Sometimes we can get direct evidence that shows our protected status was a factor. If we can document jokes and derogatory comments about our protected status, it's a good start. Now, oftentimes these kinds of things aren't documented, but we can document them ourselves. Like once when one of my peers was making a joke in staff meeting. Everybody knew who he was talking about, and they all laughed, even my boss. So after that meeting, I went back to my office and I emailed her. I told her I didn't understand why it was so funny and asked if she could explain it to me. And of course she didn't explain it, but she also didn't deny it. Yeah, it can take a lot of guts to get direct evidence. But it's worth it, because once we have it, direct evidence is nearly impossible to refute. We can use statistical evidence, like data that shows a disproportionate number of workers who are disciplined for a particular offense are members of our protected class. And it can be really hard to get our hands on this type of evidence, but I recommend at least trying to send your investigator in search of it. And if you can't get it that way, definitely request it during discovery later on. Those are the types of evidence we can use to show that our employer is subjecting us to a discriminatory disciplinary action. And if your case involves that type of action, there are some other cases you may want to get familiar with, and I'll leave some links to those in the description. Facing discrimination at work is frustrating enough all on its own. But when we're facing illegal discipline and wrongful termination on top of that, I wish I had some magic tips that I could share with you to make them stop. Once they start down that path, there's really not a lot we can do about it, except gather enough evidence to expose what they're doing so we can make them pay for it later, maybe protect ourselves in the meantime. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, take care and hang in. Fight smart.